Good evening, America. It's your friend Carl from Gray Matters with my Friday night drive time rant. Becoming a little bit of a tradition again. So let's talk about it. So, of course, there's really only one thing in the news, only one thing to talk about: the second impeachment of Donald Trump. Well, it is what it is, I guess. The Democrats have filed articles of impeachment. It's a little unprecedented to try to impeach someone who is out of office. The constitutionality of it is questionable and up for question. And it's not like they could remove him from office. They could vote to ban him from ever holding office again, which is, of course, the Democrats' ultimate goal. And, you know, I can understand why. So there's a couple things I want to touch on. First off, I don't think Donald Trump is going to get convicted. That's just my current take on the lay of the land. I haven't been watching extremely closely. I plan on catching up this weekend and getting a bit more speed. I have been checking in from time to time, and I've been reading and trying to stay up to date as best I could, but, you know, I have things to do, jobs, family, things to do. So nonetheless, so a couple things I want to touch on. First, I think maybe I should touch on where I think the Democrats have it right and where I think the Republicans have it right. Democrats have it right when they say that Donald Trump's history and continued use of certain words and certain terms and certain phrases, and his continual repetition of certain rhetoric definitely gave these people the idea that it was the right thing to do in their mind to break into the Capitol and to get crazy. So that's where I think the Democrats have it right. I think they're right that by his repeated regurgitation of certain themes and certain beliefs and certain philosophies and certain theories, conspiracy crazy or not, or legitimate, some of his theories I think hold some water. Not all, but I think that that's where the Democrats have it right. He was hammering all this stuff over and over and over again in these people's heads. But here's where the Democrats don't have it. Because, see, almost every politician who's campaigning or really trying to get a message across does the exact same thing. Now, maybe Trump's specific language might have been a bit more inflammatory, a bit more inspirational or insightful, not in the seeing meaning beyond the surface insightful, but as in inciting people to action. He absolutely may have. He may have inspired these people to do that with his actions, but the Democrats have done the same things. So that's where Democrats are wrong. They're right in the fact that the way Donald Trump has spoken and the kinds of things he has said had definitely impassioned people to act a fool. Where the Republicans have it right. Like I just said, the Democrats have used this very same language and repeated very similar themes and ideologies and beliefs and rhetoric, and they too have inspired people to violent action. They cannot say they have not. Now, was one side more justified than the other? Possibly, probably. But doesn't change the fact that violence is wrong in any of these situations. Resorting to violence is not the way to move forward. So that doesn't change. So that makes things irrelevant. That undercuts a great portion of the Democrats' argument here. Where the Republicans also have it right, if you're going to start singling out words like fight, march as inflammatory language that should never be used, I would like to currently impeach the Beastie Boys for inciting young people to fight for their right to party. I would like to impeach Public Enemy for inciting people to fight the power. Meatloaf, fight for love. Yeah, I mean, come on, dude. Trying to say that the word fight, trying to single out the word fight as a secret coded message, that's the thing that really just makes me laugh about this whole situation. They're trying to say that language that has been repeatedly used for centuries, the word fight, the word march, has been used in political protest for centuries. And yeah, a lot of times it's led to violence. But to say that language is outside the norm is complete BS. It is absolutely within the norm. The fact that these people felt so impassioned to act the way they did is ridiculous. Now, where I think the Democrats are wrong, I don't think that Donald Trump had pre-knowledge of a potential violence, and even if he did, it is up to them to prove it. They have to prove. They can't just insinuate that he may have known, or he might have looked at a website, or somebody might have told him about something somebody said on the internet. You can't use that. That is not the bar we're going to set for our legal standards. You have to prove he had foreknowledge that this was going to happen, and that he went out there and purposely crafted his words to tell these people to go fight violence. So what was the trigger word? Was it the moment that he said, and he said this, you can look it up, it's all over the internet, it's fact. He said, I want you to march down there and peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. He specifically said during his speech, peacefully. Was that the trigger word? Was that the code word? Peace is now the code word for violence? Is that again, is that the standard we're setting here? However, again, the Democrats are right that this guy, Donald Trump, he has never understood what exactly, how much gravity his office held and how much he's doing. I mean, I don't think he fully appreciated, and I've said this before in a couple of videos, I don't think he fully appreciated that people will take things he said, and use them out of context. I mean, for Pete's sake, look at how many people have taken religious documents, read them, and said, oh, well, obviously this means they want us to go kill people. That's not what the text meant. That's not what, no. People will always take someone's words and say that those words somehow gave them permission to act out whatever they did. I mean, for Pete's sake, serial killers have said that dogs have given them permission to go and murder. It's okay, the dog said I could kill people. The dog said I should. You know, I mean, we can't, like I said, and again, to try to say that he had pre-existing knowledge of the potential violence, a pre-planned attack on the Capitol Hill, okay, if you want to assert that, that's fine, but you have to prove it. That is going to be a tough proof right there, guys. And until you do, I'm not going to accept your insinuation. So I don't think Donald Trump will get convicted. However, some other things that Republicans need to consider. Now, if Donald Trump is not convicted and therefore is okayed and pretty much cleared to run for office again in 2024, which he has expressed that he plans on doing, then the Republican Party will have to choose on whether or not to back Trump in 2024 or whether to oppose Trump on 2024. I think either move for them. This is just my opinion, my strategical analysis of how the Republicans might want to think, the questions Republicans might want to ask themselves before they proceed. If he is not convicted and is cleared to run for office in 2024, Republicans will have to either A, back him in 2024, which will turn off a lot of people that vote Republican and of course independents and swing voters. And they're going to have to oppose him, which will cost them a huge portion of their base. And if Donald Trump runs third party, he will take, in my humble estimation, half the Republicans will go. Half. And probably some swings and some independents along with it. Hell, he might even grab a couple Democrat voters too. Or what I would now call new swing voters. Not traditional swing voters, but new swing voters. So, will he have a chance to win? I doubt it. The Democrats will probably stay pretty damn well unified, which means that if Trump runs in 2024, in my opinion, no matter how it goes down, whether the Republicans back him or oppose him, there's no chance for him or a Republican to win. And it's quite possible that him running in 2024 could possibly hand the Democrats the largest chunk of control over the United States government that they've ever had. This is a prediction. This is just based on what I'm seeing and my insights and my level of knowledge and education. This is what quite possibly could happen. Will it happen? I don't know. I'm not going to give you 95-45. No, but it's a possibility. It is a respectable possibility that it could happen. So that is something to be considered, Republicans. Now, if the Republicans convict Trump, if enough of them vote and convict Trump and ban him from running for office, see, then they run into another problem. Is, again, about half the Republicans will wholeheartedly stick with Trump and support Trump. Even though he can't run, anybody Trump backs, anybody Trump supports in 2024, they will get the nod of probably half the Republicans. So they still end up in the same situation. So long story short, Donald Trump has destroyed the Republican Party. It's not he will, he already has. And, the Republicans have a lot to do with that. The Republicans, I can sit here and list off a dozen things that they've done over the years, more than a dozen things. There were periods when they had full control of the House and the Senate, and they had the White House. They could have passed so much legislation. They could have done so many things. They could have moved their agenda so far down the road. But they tried to play nice with Democrats, which the Democrats quite often, usually 98% of the time, do not do with Republicans when they're in the same position. When the Democrats have that much control, they generally ram and railroad everything they think they can get away with through the Congress with practically zero Republican support. And in fact, they do it in spite of Republican protests. And even their Democratic protests, sometimes there's like 60 to 70% of the country will be against something, but the Democrat Party will still ram through legislation that they believe in because they have the votes. And Republicans have done the same, but not nearly as often. And so I saw somebody call out. It's like, we got to stop saying that these people are the same. They are, but they aren't. They are. They're the same, but they're different. Like I said, you people have got to stop believing that there's I'm sorry, I can't think of the word right now, but there's only one state of existence for a political party, or a person, or anyone. You can think multiple things and still, you can believe one thing and still have multiple opinions, or look at it from multiple perspectives and still count. And you can be on both sides of the fence at the same time. It doesn't mean that you're wrong, or you've made a mistake, or that you're selling out, or anything like that, or that you don't have a backbone. In fact, being someone who thinks and tries to see things from both sides, and tries to find a true third, fourth, or fifth path to a solution or resolution, in fact, probably has more balls than anyone who calls himself a Democrat or a Republican, for the sheer and simple fact that everybody thinks you're crazy. Everybody thinks you're against them. Everybody thinks you're evil in some way. But Democrats, you are right. I think Trump's language in his speech, I mean, that was always, and I've always said this, I've always believed this, the guy just doesn't know how to talk to crowds. He doesn't understand. The key thing here is intent. Did he intend to incite violence? I do not think he did. And I find it practically impossible for them to prove that he did. I think he was willing to accept violence if it happened. But I don't think he wanted it. I don't think he was secretly hoping for it. And again, even if he was, you got to prove it. You got to prove it, man. I don't care if it's the Senate. I don't care if it's an impeachment trial. I don't care if it's court. I don't care if it's an HR meeting at your job. Evidence and proof need to be, not opinion, not, I felt like he was going to harm me. Did you felt like he was going to harm you? Dude, a lot of people feel a lot of ways about a lot of things. It doesn't make it true. You can say a great number of things. It doesn't make it true. Just because you have that opinion of something doesn't mean that is in fact a fact. You know, I believe that Barack Obama was honestly trying to make the country a better place. I also believe that many of his policies were counterproductive to that. So I can hold both those beliefs at the same time. But you know, it would be hard for me to prove things either way. So if you're going to throw something out, you better have a lot more proof than what I've seen thus far. Like I said, I haven't watched every second of the impeachment trial. I haven't seen every speech. Haven't seen every video or picture that they've shown. But I don't think the Democrats have proved that he got up there on January 6th, or that he strategically planned over the course of 6 or 8 and 10 months by perfectly calculating his words in such a manner that he inspired them to do just the right things when he used the word peacefully march down there. So I don't think they've proven that. I don't think he's going to be convicted. Republicans, you're between a rock and a hard place. I hate it for you. Democrats, you need to watch your ass, man. You are setting very unsafe precedents, because no one ever seems to think about all these political maneuvers and things to coming back to bite them in the ass, and quite often they do. Democrats have had that happen to them. Republicans have had that happen to them. So you have to be quite careful about how things go down here, and how you proceed. And if we're going to start thinking, like I said, I meant to say this earlier, if we're going to start calling out things like words like fight and march and things like that, then we need to start calling, if we're going to start impeaching people over using those words repeatedly, there's a whole slew of senators and presidents and vice presidents, and since we're going to impeach people who aren't in office anymore, there's a whole slew of people who need to be impeached for using that kind of language currently sitting in office. There's a number of Democrats who specifically called for violent acts, or said that they were willing to commit violent acts, most specifically against a sitting president of the United States. I'll take him down. I'd take him out back and beat him behind the gym. You know, I mean, don't think that your language didn't help impassion these people on the right. Democrats, you have to realize that all the ugly things you have said about Republicans over, dude, get off my ass. Sorry. All these things that Democrats have said about Republicans, it doesn't matter if they're true or not. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. But you've used extremely inflammatory language toward the Republicans, and you don't think that helped inspire some of these people to violence? You have to be careful about inciting your enemies to violence. Because if you truly don't want violence, if you truly fear that violence may break out, then you have to be careful about how you address your opposition. But we have to look strong. It's common knowledge in politics and diplomacy. You know, if you go out there and you start talking about how that person or this thing or that place is evil and that party and this person and that thing is wrong and we need to do everything, heard this, everything in our power to stop them. We must do everything to stop them. Get up in your congressmen's faces, follow them, chase them down, and get up in their faces. I've heard those words from several senators. You know, grab them. I've heard people tell people to grab congressmen, specifically Republicans, and to basically assault them. And let's not forget about all the times that after Donald Trump was elected, the Republican congressmen and senators went into public places like restaurants, stores, and malls and got accosted and some physically assaulted by citizens, by Democrats, by left-leaning people. So if we're going to start talking about violence, we have to talk about all the violence on all the sides. We have to bring that into the conversation. It has to be considered. You can't just point to one incident that you say one person incited. You all incited that riot on January 6th. You were all responsible for those deaths. And to say you aren't is an out-and-out lie. It is disingenuous. It is cognitive dissonance, if anything else. It is a refusal to accept the facts that are presented to you. So, guys, all I got to say is good luck. I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't think he's going to be convicted, but I think that is a bad move for Republicans. But it's also a good move for Republicans. So, I don't know. You got Republicans, you're in a bad spot. And you know, one last parting thought. I have had this opinion for a long time, and I still stand by it. One of the biggest problems that both Republicans and Democrats have with Donald Trump, and by no means don't think that any of the things I've said in this video make me a Donald Trump supporter. I don't think he should have ever been elected. He should have never had a chance. But what I'm about to say will hopefully explain why he had a chance. People have become so sick of both the Democrats and the Republicans that they wanted someone outside. And that's why Donald Trump won. Not because he's a racist. He didn't win because he said things that might be construed as racist. And even a lot of those things, questionable. Because making racist statements is extremely easy these days. You know, to say that, you know, a lot of people believe that black people like fried chicken is a racist statement. To even say that you know that some people believe a stereotype could be construed as a racist statement. But people wanted an outsider. That is why Donald Trump won. And that's why the Democrats and many Republicans hate him. He's not a member of the club. And he refused to be controlled. In some ways, that was very, very good for him. In other ways, it was very detrimental to him. And that's part of what caused this violence on January 6th. He refused to fall in line with what everyone was telling him. He is used to being the guy in charge, not a guy in charge, not one of the people in charge. He's used to being the guy in charge. When he got the presidency, he assumed that he was the guy in charge. And he also assumed that, probably mistakenly, that people would somehow figure out what he meant when he said things, and even if they didn't, they would find a way to confirm what he meant and do what he wants, but without letting him know. So Republicans, you were responsible for Donald Trump ever being there, and you're responsible for the state of your party. Democrats, you are also responsible for Donald Trump. You know, you guys keep trying to play just to your audience. You cannot. There are so many people right now. Look, I don't care what you people are seeing. I tell you what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing from almost everyone I talk to. I mean, I'm talking a huge percentage of the people I talk to. And I talk to a lot of people about politics. I decided, screw it. I'm going to have this conversation. People want to talk about it. Let's talk about it. I mean, that's the only way we're going to actually make any real progress on these issues. Unless we start talking about it. There are so many more people in the middle. So many more people who are in the middle in this country. You know, if you looked at the voting and the politics, you'd think everybody was split 50-50, pretty much, give or take a few points on either side. You know, 47, 48, 48, 46, whatever, and a 5 or 10% in the middle who are independents. You would think that that's how the country is. But no, the fact of the matter is, most people, when they sit down and talk, I'd say about 70%, probably a little less, maybe 65, 60%, will actually come together and find middle ground. And I'm talking about citizens. I talk to people who are hardcore Democrats in their philosophies and their voting. But when we sit down and they and I have a conversation, we start talking about issues and the different things we should do and we should address. Now, mind you, I'm not a hardcore Republican. So I'm willing to be more flexible. But I do lean right. That much is true. But I'm definitely not a hardcore right-wing person. It is, I can almost always find a middle ground with these people. I'm like, no. And if both, there are so many more people on both sides who are willing to talk and meet in the middle on a lot of these issues. But our powers that be, our leaders, they just refuse. They refuse to do it because they're so scared of losing power. And the people who really like to vote, are generally the extremes. The extremes are always willing to vote. And that's what the true base is. You know, a lot of people talk about political bases. The true political bases are the extreme wings of both parties. The far right and the far left. That's what the new bases are. The people in the middle, the people like myself, and like I said, there are people who are Democrats and people who are Republicans. A lot of those people absolutely are more willing to meet in the middle, and we're willing to talk and see things out. You know, and it's not as it's like I said, people have to accept the duality of this country and where we stand on things. There's a lot more duality than we want to accept. Like, for example, the country is way more racist than a lot of white people want to accept. But it's also not nearly as racist as a lot of black people say it is, or Hispanic people, or Asian people, or gay people, or whatever. It's not as, it's both worse and not as bad as people believe at the same time. I know that's hard to wrap your brains around, but it's in fact true. If you really get out in the world and talk to people from all walks of life, you will see that. But there are absolutely hardcore Republicans, and they're hardcore, you know, liberals, and we just have to start talking and finding common ground. We have to stop talking against it. We are speaking words of war most of the time. We have to stop that. Stop it. We're talking philosophy here. When it boils down to the basics of it, we are talking philosophy here. It boils down to being similar to, do you raise your kids on sugar or not on sugar? Do you give You raise your kids vegan or non-vegan. You know, I mean, that's the honest level where we are. We're talking philosophy. You know, do you think that wearing short skirts is okay? You know, those are the kind of, you know, that's the true level of what a lot of this is. And that's I don't know. I'm not the best at explaining things sometimes. I try my very best. But yeah, man, we've got to stop taking things so seriously. We really do. We take our beliefs and we automatically assume that we are 100% right when that is not always the case. A lot of times we are wrong. I recently posted a quote from Shakespeare. You know, and I'm going to paraphrase here. Only a fool thinks himself a wise man, but a true wise man understands that he's a fool and doesn't know everything. So yeah, like I said, that's to paraphrase, and that's what we have to start understanding about ourselves. I'm not saying you aren't right about some things. I'm not saying but you have to start believing that you are wrong about things, and that the very things you are right about, you might be wrong about. We have to be willing to accept that we could be wrong about everything. But how are we going to move forward if we're not completely sure in our faith? We have to believe in ourselves to make the right decisions, but we have to be willing to listen to other people. I know I'm talking to a brick wall sometimes, but that's what I want to tell you guys, man. We've got to move forward. And look, again, I'm going to keep talking. This is my talking point. This is my rhetoric. Okay? We don't need the government to fix a huge portion of our problems. So many. I'm talking about homelessness and so many other things, corporate greed and corporate problems. A lot of that we can solve, or we can at least make a major impact on it without the government's involvement at all. If you were to poll people, almost every single person in this country understands that corporations are involved in a lot of crazy backdoor political underhanded BS. Now, they're doing that to protect their interests, to protect their stockholders, and they should be protecting their stockholders. However, they shouldn't be doing it that way. That's where regulations come in. That's where things come in. But that's also where we, as the populace, can get together and say, hey, man, I don't like, look, if enough people boycott something, the boycotts work. Boycotts don't work if you do it because look, let's say Coke and Pepsi. Let's say Coke's Republican, Pepsi's Democrat. That's not the case. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying just for this argument, let's say them. So half the country drinks Pepsi. Now that's a fact outside of this little analogy, outside of this little metaphor. About half the country drinks Pepsi. About half the country drinks Coke. Sometimes they switch back and forth. So that's a good analogy for voters. Okay? And if we keep trying to tell people that no, you can only ever drink Pepsi, you're making a terrible mistake. You can only ever drink Coca-Cola. It's a bad idea. And to think that we can only have one or the other, and to try to eliminate one or try to eliminate the other is just such a mistake. So guys, it's Friday night. I know I take up a lot of time. Most of you people don't even watch my videos. I don't get nearly the views I think I should be getting. But again, we're all very fond of our own opinions now, aren't we? So I'm going to go. You guys have a good night. Drive safe. Be careful. If there is some live entertainment near you, go see some local entertainment. See some local comedians, a band, a rapper. Go to a piano bar. Go somewhere and get some real live entertainment, and make sure you're spending money on that entertainment. Don't go to just some free stuff. And if you are seeing free entertainment, make sure that if you like the stuff you see, go and follow these people online. Support these people. Follow them, share their stuff, buy their stuff if they have stuff for sale. Support these people. You want to deal with corporations? That's what I was trying to say. If you want to deal with corporations, how we spend our dollars. If we get enough people, but like I said, with Coke and Pepsi, if only I'm sorry, I got off track. I just totally realized that. My bad. So yeah, back to the Coke and Pepsi thing. Half the country drinks Coke, half the country drinks Pepsi. So to start a boycott, to say we're going to boycott Coca-Cola, well, generally the only people who are going to support that are the people. Like I said, if you're using Coke and Pepsi as an analogy, also for the voters, only the people who drink Pepsi are probably going to boycott Coca-Cola. You're probably going to get very few people who are Coca-Cola to boycott Coca-Cola, and vice versa. So boycotts only work unless you have a big percentage, and that's why we've got to start getting down to the middle of things, because that's where the 60 to 70 to 80% on issues. Dude, there are some issues in this country that 80% of the country agree on. If you go look them up online, there are issues out there. I can't call one off the top of my head, but there are some where about 80% of the country agrees on certain issues, or at least agrees that they need to be addressed, or they need to be, or even sometimes even in a certain direction. And we need to start working things like that, and stop trying to think that we can all or nothing everything. Compromise, and finding other ways. You know, we're also stuck in this, well, we can only do it if we cut taxes. We can only do it if we raise taxes. Perhaps there's a third way. Perhaps raising and lowering taxes isn't the solution for our financial problems. Perhaps passing more laws or passing more regulations on corporations, or reducing regulations on corporations, perhaps they're not the way we deal with things. Like I said, a lot of this can be done by the public. We, the people, can do this if we talk about it and are willing to be rational about it. So drive safe, be careful, get out there and see some entertainment this weekend. This has been Carl with Gray Matters. I know I still haven't put anything out well produced, and I keep promising. All I can do is say, guys, I'm sorry I haven't met up to the challenge yet, but I will do my very best to get there. But keep watching. I still have so much more to say, and I hope that I can open your eyes to being more open-minded. And I'm hoping perhaps to even help people find ways to release a little bit of their anger and stress over some of these issues. Some of these issues are not nearly as big a deal as we like to think they are. We act as if they're life and death, and many of them are not. So we need to calm down, and we need to get more rational and logical about a lot of these things. So guys, I'm going to get out of here. Drive safe, be careful, have a good weekend, go see some local entertainment, eat some good food, try to be healthy, and we'll see you around. Bye.